But then we can start. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So just give me a few seconds. Let me share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, let me know if my screen is visible to everyone.
You can see your screen. Thank you.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you, Hassan. And thank you everyone for joining the session. I know it's Saturday, family day. It's me time day. But thank you for taking the time out and join this session. So this is the fourth session where we are wrapping up our business analyst training. And the topic for today is the business analyst role in the testing and the UAT phases. So it's a very, very, very important phase during the project. I hope everyone has an experience and has gone through with these phases. And if someone is as a business analyst working on a project, they must know about like how important these phases are and what are the different challenges BA faces in this role. What are the different things that can go wrong during this phase, which can become like a showstopper for the project to go live. So there are a couple of items that we will discuss, and and let's start. So let me introduce myself. My name is Badr Abbas. I am working as a VP of Service Delivery at Cloud Junction Advisors. I have almost 14 years of experience. I started my career as a business analyst, worked as business analyst for 7 to 8 years, and then move and transition my role towards a more um, manager role, or you can say I start move towards the manager role, then become the director and the VP. So, and I have Salesforce certification. I'm application architect. So that was a basic background of myself. So let's deep dive into the topic. And like as we have all like I mentioned, like this is the topic where we'll discuss the testing and the UAT phase and how BA will help and ensure that this phase completes smoothly because the testing phase, definitely the B is not doing the testing, but he is facilitating, he is helping the QA team or the developers to test out the solution in the best way so that the requirements, the solution that whatever has been built is up to the mark. Okay. So I think the very basic question, very basic item, like why testing matters. And I think this is a very common concept. It's not a new thing. Like if you see, like whenever you do something, whenever you start doing anything new, you test things out. It can happen in your personal life as well. Like let's say you went to a shop and you are now purchasing something for yourself. Maybe it's a jeans, it's a t-shirt, it's anything, and you have to try it on first. So it means you are testing it like without testing. And let's say if you haven't tested, let's say the jeans that you are buying, and you went home and now you found out, hey, this is not the right size, this is not the color you want, or like there can be so much problems. And but like if you've tested, if you've tried that out in a shop, definitely you would see, hey, this is not the right size for me, I need a different color, I need a different size of the genes. So that's why the testing matters. And it's during the project phase, it's not a 1 day testing phase. So you have to like plan this out better. So like if you understand, like during the project life cycle, the most of the issues appear either in the testing phase or either in the like once the solution is in UAT or in production. And the common reasons behind those issues can be like the requirements were not clear during the requirement gathering phase. Like the BA hasn't uh, put either like understood the requirements clearly or the requirements was misunderstood. Like client has explained something but the BA have understood something else, so that's the misalignment. And inadequate testing, like the testing by either by the QA team or in some cases BA do the testing as test the solution. So maybe the testing was not complete, not like not all the scenarios were tested. And because of all of this, you can see like if the solution went live or its solution went into UAT phase, there would be much more issues. The sentiment will go sour, and you will see the timeline now is been pushed, and now everyone has to put an extra effort to complete the project, resolve the issues, maintain the client sentiment. And so, what eventually, what is the goal that we have to achieve? The goal is to have we built the solution correctly. So that's one thing. Like the main goal of the testing or the project in short is like the solution that we are building, is it correct? Is it working fine? It does it have any defects? And yeah, and what UAT do, did we build the right solution? So testing ensured the solution is working perfectly, right? Let's say like you have built a solution, and let's go with the example that I've mentioned. Let's say there was a requirement that the loan officer approves the loan, which means like there's an approval process between once the application is submitted to the loan officer. uh, so if I go just as a QA, as a tester, without understanding the requirements fully, or maybe the requirements were not right during the requirement gathering phase, the BA or the QA can just test out the solution. Hey, yes, the loan application that is submitted, the approval process is there, it's kicked in, and now someone has gone and approved the application. Okay, perfect. This is working fine. The test passes, and which means that your test goal is complete. But when this requirement will be tested by the customer, this is where they validate their business, whether the solution actually that has been built will work for their business or not, because they know their business, they know the ins and outs, all the nitty gritties, and that's how they test out the solution. And this is where the question comes, like, is the solution right for them, like they can start using it, they can adopt it or not. But let's say, let's bring back the examples, like the loan officer approves the loan. It's a single, like the whatever the development team has built, it's a single step process, like it just goes to one person. But what business wanted, like it's a multi-level hierarchy. Let's say it needs to be approved by first person, then its manager. This is how their business works. But let's say in the requirement gathering phase, either this requirement was not communicated, or it was communicated but it was not understood correctly, or it was understood correctly but this was not built correctly. But eventually in the end, it is impacting the UAT phase and directly the customer, which means that your test will be passed but the UAT fails. And this is the most important and the critical part of the project, that UAT should move towards go live or the deployment phase smoothly without any issues. And this is like how we ensure that the project is running smoothly. Okay, so let's move forward. So I think this is a very important part. Like as a BA, we have to understand what is the life cycle of a BA and what are the common, or the you can say key touch points during the project where BA has to come into the project and like help and facilitate the team and the project. So the BA starts with the requirement gathering phase. Like this is where the project starts, right? This is where the BA comes, and like he's the center person who is running the show. Like he talks to the customer, he gathers the requirements, he document that and all of that. And we in the last session we have discussed like what are the documents. that BA usually create during the requirement gathering phase. So that's one phase where BA is actually the owner of that phase. Now there's a development phase. The development phase where the development team is coming, they understood the requirements and now they're building it. But definitely development team or the developers will have some questions and they will uh, definitely need the BA's help over there to clarify, hey, how this is working, how this will work, what's the requirement, or maybe there's something missing during the requirements so that BA can go to the customer and clarifies. So the development team can work. Now there's a system test phase, which means this is where the QA teams will come in, they will test out the solution. And the QA team will also need help from the BA. Hey, you have written this requirement, and these are the test cases that we are creating. Is there anything missing? So BA and the QA team has to work side by side to complete or test out the solution. I'm not saying the BA has to test all the test cases, but if the process is like the QA has to test, but BA has to facilitate that. Like BA has to help them and ensure that all the test cases are passed. Then there is a SIT and UAT. I think the most important for me is the UAT phase. Like this is where the most important part of the project where customer is coming in and testing out the solution. Because let's say before that, they haven't seen anything. Like they have just heard it, they have just like read it from the documents or just view some flows and diagrams. But this is where they are seeing the solution for the very first time. And BA should be part of this phase um, because BA was the one who gathered the requirements, who understood the solution or the idea or the problems for the very first time from the customer. So definitely the customer would want the BA to be part of this phase. And BA can also help the project team, the project manager, the development team to uh, uh, like 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 in the UAT phase to help them and to facilitate them. So where BA adds value. So this is what I've talked about through in this slide. So in the requirement review, like BA adds their value. Like he knows the customer what they're asking and also knows the requirement and he can help over there. In the UAT planning, BA knows what teams are involved, what solution we have built. So he can help the project team, the project managers, the development team. Hey, who do we need in the UAT? Let's say there are multiple sessions. The UAT or the BA can help and facilitate the team. Hey, we need this team for this part of the solution. We need another team for this part of solution, and BA can calendarize. BA can organize this. Defect triage. So let's say during the UAT phase, customer has found some bugs. Now this is where BA will come and BA will triage and review those let's say the defects and say, hey, this is not a real issue. This is a training gap. Maybe this is, let's say, yeah, and let's say there's another issue. Yep, this is an issue that has been not tested either properly or the requirements were missed, and then further steps will be taken. And also on the sign off support, like BA can help the project team, the managers to get the sign off. Like once the project is done or live, and let's say they can close out the project. Hey, we have covered all your requirements, and this is where the project is live. So in short, BA is kind of like a bridge in with all the teams, like with the development team, with the customer, with the managers or the project managers who is running the show. So they are like BA is like one person who is building relationships and maintaining all of that. So let's see and deep dive into what is the role of a BA during the testing phase. So before testing, what BA is doing, like as it discussed earlier and mentioned in my previous slide, like BA helps the QA team. So like let's say now the QA team is coming in and they have created they are in creating they are creating the test scripts. Now BA has to like help them and get them familiar with the requirements. Like the QA team helps the QA team to understand the requirements fully and clarify all the ambiguities, all the scenarios that QA team has in their mind. Also helps the QA team to define the acceptance criteria of the test cases, and also support the test creation phase. Like The QA team is creating all the documents, all the test cases, and BA will help them and support them in short, in clarifying and making the test cases as clear, as concise as possible. And let's say once this is done, the document is ready and the QA team is ready to go and deep dive and test out the solution. And let's say the now you will need to understand this is where the QA team is also visualizing or also seeing the solution for the very first time. And if there are any business requirement, any process kind of a good question comes up during the testing, this is where BA has to come again and help the QA team to understand, okay, this is the business flow, this is the business requirement for this section, this module, or this page. And in the end, also validate the test scenarios. So let's say QA team is testing some steps or some module inside Salesforce, and BA has to, like, let's say, oversee and validates, hey, yes, these are the steps that you have to test, and this is correct. Assist with the defects, like once like the issues have been identified or have been reported to the team, BA has to come up and see, hey, what are the issues and how it can be triaged and how it can be resolved. So yeah, and once the testing is done, confirm the requirement coverage. Hey, we have covered, let's say there were 100 test cases, 80 of them were passed, but 20 of them were failed. And let's say, hey, uh, we have covered some major requirements, but still, based on the 20 defects, there are still some modules that are left, and we cannot go into the UAT phase. BA can decide, BA can confirm like how much solution has been tested correctly and how we can proceed in the project, and supports the sign off during the testing phase. Again, how like I think the test cases is very important. In my case, like when I was a BA, and when we were writing the test scenarios, and as a BA, you have to have a quality of visualizing the solution. Hey, we have to, let's say there's a solution that you're building. Hey, once we click this button, the integration should start and the account record should go into an ERP and create a customer record. Let's say this is the requirement, basic requirement that someone has to test. But and that's how the BA visualize the solution. I hey, when I click it, this is how the integration will go, and the record will create, and these fields will map to the other ERP system. And if you have that capability, definitely you can create a good test scenarios, good test cases as well. So this is a basic example that I've written over here to clarify, like, what is an effective test scenario. So let's say the requirements were what BF has got from the customer. As a loan officer, I want to upload customer to the solution as in the testing phase. I go into the module, click on the button, and try to upload a PDF document, a docx document, and some other documents, and let's say some images. And in the end, it was successful. Like the files were uploaded and linked to the record successfully. That's the positive test case, and this is where that's the functionality that has been built. And let's say what are the negative test cases that you have to test. I think it's very important, like what I've seen, like in some cases, the team focuses or the QA team focuses on the positive test cases a lot. And they ignore the negative test cases. Like this is where either the system will fail by entering some wrong data or something which is not expected, or either the process will fail over here. So I think the very common example that I have seen, hey, let's say uh, you have created a start date and an end date on an object, let's say, to capture some dates of something that starts and ends. But this is where the process will fail. Hey, if someone has entered the end date, which is before the start date, very very common example. And like this is where like you or the development team has to think, hey, is this right? Can end date be before the start date, or can start date be after the end date? No, this is wrong. This should not happen. This is where the you have to test the negative test cases. Like you have to enter the dates and see if that works or not, and if it is not allowing the user to enter like the dates before the start date or after the end date, then that passes. That's good. But you have to test the negative scenarios as well. And in that case, let's say the user uploads the unsupported file or loaded a file with a very big size, and that should not be allowed. Like this is a negative test case, and that should prevent the process to move forward. So in short, like as a QA, you have to test the positive test cases as well, and the negative test cases as well, and the negative test cases should also be part of the test case document. I hope I'm not moving too fast. If anyone has any questions, they can write down in the chat, and we can discuss at the end. And I think this is where the important phase come up, and I think, like as I mentioned, this is where uh, the customer is coming and seeing the solution for the very first time. So this has to be planned out very well. Like you need to discuss this with the team, with your managers, with the development team, with your execs either, uh, and you have to create a plan. Like, what is my UAT plan? Hey, either how much time we are giving the customer to test out the solution. That's one. The timeline needs to be defined. Who will test out the solution? Like you have to identify who are the users or the champions from the customer side that knows the business, and now they're coming into the solution and they're seeing it for the very first time and testing it. So there can be multiple champions, multiple teams that can come and test out the solution. So you have to plan that out as well. You have to identify out that as well. And definitely BA cannot do that alone, so you have to have a very clear conversation with the customer. You have to plan out their schedules as well. Hey, this is the date where we will start the UAT, and this is the team that we need for that day. This is how you can plan. And in the end, you have to see what methodology you are using or you are following in the UAT phase. Either it's the walkthroughs, like you are helping them seeing the solution for the very first time. You are running the solution by yourself, or maybe you are saying, "Hey, customer, sit in front of the laptop. These are the test cases. Go and follow each of the steps and test out the solution." And if they have any questions, they can ask you right there then in the meeting, and that will speed up the process as well. In some cases, there is like, hey, these are the test cases, these are the recordings, or here's the credentials. Go into the system, test the solution on your by yourself, and just let us know if there are any defects. But in my vision, or in my experience, this is a very slow process, let's say. And this is where definitely the timeline gets impact, and this is where the project gets delayed. And what usually I do, and what I'm preaching to my team, is the UAT phase, like it's in our control. Like we have to control that phase, and we have to ensure that the based on the timeline, and we need to make sure the customer is available. We need to make sure the customer is testing the solution, and we are getting the feedback on the right time. It should not happen. Hey, let's say you have given 1 week to your customers to test the solution, and on Friday they are starting it. You have to follow up with them. Hey, how's the testing going? Are there any issues? Let us know if you need help from ourselves to facilitate or to fast track it. Um, and let's move on to what BA should ask. Like, have all the business processes been tested? Like before the UAT starts, this is where the BA should check few things. And these are some, let's say, internal processes can be built around that. Like someone has to approve, hey, yes, the test cases have been passed, and now we can move towards the UAT. Like someone has to record that, someone has to maintain the process during the project phase. Are edge cases covered like during the testing or the build, or have they been like tested at all? Like everyone knows, there are certain edge cases. Like these are not usual cases, let's say, that happens every time, but they happens very rarely. But have we covered that? Have we tested out those cases as well? Are there any edge cases? Like you need to ask from the customer, and you need to identify how critical they are, how important they are. But If edge cases are like taking over the main design or they're impacting the main solution, then you have to have a very clear communication from the customer and find a workaround of that. Are users comfortable using the solution? And like say in the UAT phase, you need to understand, like as a BA, like you have to see, hey, are users comfortable? Are they asking too many questions? Are they reporting too many issues? And you can see the sentiment of the customers as well. Like you have to read their faces, you have to read their comments. Yeah, like they are reporting so much issues. I think they are not comfortable. Let's have a conversation with them. What are the issues? What are you are saying? What's the hurdles you are seeing during the UAT or the system or the solution testing? And let's say like UAT is done, you got list of defects, list of issues from the customer. So let's say you have to triage, like you have to prioritize first, like based on the issue type. Let's say if it is a requirement gap, hey, do they need to like do we have to do something in the solution? Maybe it's a change request, like you have to get back to the customer. Hey, you are asking this, but this was not part of the original requirement. This will change the design, and in short, it will enhance the solution. So this is a change request. If it is an error, like log a defect, which means this should be part of the project. Now, dev team has to resolve this. User confusion, maybe customer is not following the right process, which means there is a training issue. And BA can go train the users, and then these issues can be solved. As an example that I've mentioned over here, like the user says, system is not working, very common. Hey, I filled this record, but I'm unable to save it. BA goes, investigates. He's like asked for screenshots, or let's say went on a call with the customer and sees it, what he's doing or she's doing. And the actual issue is like they have missed the mandatory fields. They're not reading their errors on the screen, and they're not filling the data in a proper way. And BA tries to train them and show them like this is how uh, the process can be followed, and it can be this issue can be marked as a training issue because the user was not following the right steps. So this is where the BA comes in the issue resolution phase, kind of, and help the team understand and triage the issues, and helps the customer, like if there is a training issue, if there's a requirement gap that customer has like requested or reported an issue as a requirement gap. So some common challenges as a BA or as a team that some you have to face. So like incomplete requirements. So how would you ensure like the requirements are complete? Let's say it only comes in the UAT phase. Like once the customer has tested the solution, they will ensure that the solution or the process you have built is complete. And this will ensure that the requirements that were gathered in the requirement gathering phase, like those were complete. And based on that, the solution is built. Now, customer is ensuring that all of that, like the solution works perfectly. Business users are unavailable. That's a very common issue. Like some business owners who needs to test, they are not available, or they don't know the whole process and all of that. So that will create some challenges for the BA to plan out the UAT phase. Poor test data, like you're handing out a solution to the customer, and the data that is there in Salesforce or in the solution is not in the right way where user can go and use it or test out based on that. Late defect discovery, which means that user has tested a solution, and I think this is a very common thing that I've seen, that once user are testing the solution, they might not have put so like enough efforts to fully test out the solution. But like as they go and test out the solutions for multiple days, then they identify, hey, this is an issue, this is another issue, and that will create some timeline risk and like for the project. Lack of ownership, like the customer has reported the issues, but no one is owning that issue. Like who owns it? Like BA has to define that as well. Like, hey, this is an error. This needs to be solved by the development team. And also maybe like in more detail, he can identify who worked on this module and he can just directly assign that issue to them. If it is a training issue, then BA has to own it. Like, hey, I can go and I can train the customer and the issue can be solved. And also, like based on these challenges, what are the common steps that BA can take? Maintain a clarity log from day one. And I think like what BA can do, like the requirements that have been gathered, they need to take a sign off on that, because if you don't have a sign off from the customer can come back, hey, say, like we have told you these requirements, but because you don't have the sign off, then you cannot uh, like point to the customer, hey, you haven't given us these requirements, so you need to take the sign off from the customer. So look, UAT, and moving to the next one. So if businesses are not available, then you have to plan this well. Like you have to lock UAT dates. You have to let them know. You have to create events or the calendar invites so that it's in their calendar and they need to follow that. Poor test data, copy and anonymize the production data. Like the data that you are giving to the customer to test out should be easy to understand, and it should have like the test cases should match with the data. Uh, Shift left, like the test owner scenarios earlier. Uh, like if UAT is like in progress and customer is testing the solution, you need to help them with each step or each module so that they can uh, test out and they can identify the defects or the issues. Create a formal go no go checklist. Like if you have like the set of requirements, and now you need to and I think this is not a kind of like a formal document that what I'm asking for, but it's just like have we passed the UAT phase, then that's a go phase. Like you can move forward and go and deploy the solution into the production. But if there are so many issues that have been reported by the customer, that's a no go. Like we cannot go live without certain things that have been built correctly, or there should be no issues in that. So let's move forward. And in the end, some best practices for BA in the testing and the UAT phase. So number one, define clear acceptance criteria. Like uh, for the in the user stories, it should be very, very, very clear, because this is where the problem starts. Like if the requirements are not right and they have been not understood correctly, uh, which means the user stories can be wrong. Like the acceptance criteria, either it's incomplete or they are not covering all the requirements. Maintain the RTM traceability, like the requirement traceability metrics. So in short, um, uh, the requirement traceability metrics, like it maintains or it bring back the requirements, the use cases, the test scripts, and joins them, and it gives you like a visual uh, uh, representation of the requirements. Hey, we have covered everything or not. Use realistic or anonymized data. I think give a reasonable kind of a data to the customer so that they can test out the solution. Let's say you are showing some reports and dashboards to the customer, but if there is not enough data in your org or in your system, then definitely the reports and dashboards will not show uh, like the way they should be. Like they if they could not show all the scenarios in it. Track defects religiously. Like you cannot ignore a single defect, because maybe customer will come back and just point this out, and this will whole bring the project at stall, and like it will create so many issues. What are the don'ts that BA has to do during the testing and the UAT phase? Like assume dev gets the requirements. Very, very, very common problem. Like you have to like let's say you have given the requirement or the use cases, all the documents to the dev team, and they are reading it, they have started building it. uh, Maybe dev team, like they think that they have a very clear understanding of the solution, and they are now starting uh, they have started to build the solution. BA can go and let's say have initial reviews with the devs, so that like they like once the solution is come up for the testing, that's where like this is where the BA can control. Like he or she can involve in the build reviews, you can say, as soon as possible, as early as possible. Skip edge cases to save time. There will be multiple edge cases in the solution, and if the BA thinks that we can skip this, definitely that's not the right move. They need This needs to be communicated to the customer and find like a solution for that. How this can be resolved? Either it's a very common edge case. Let's say it comes maybe once a week, and a user has to do a lot of steps for it. That's not good. So BA has to find a solution for that. Rush sign off to meet a deadline. Like, let's say user, like you are in the UAT phase and now you're rushing the customer, and the customer has not tested all the parts of the solution. That's not right. You should not rush. Take a week more, take 2 weeks more, but customer should be 100% satisfied with the solution, and then it needs to be deployed and go live. Ignores user feedback, very common thing. Like, don't ignore anything. If customer is saying, hey, we need to change this field label, just do that. That's like, nothing should be ignored. If customer is reporting anything, or even the QA team has reported issues or defect, nothing should be ignored. Everything should be discussed internally and should be sorted out before going live. So this is where I will end my presentation. And thank you everyone for joining. And I hope I have covered some important, uh, uh, you can say, parts where the BA can help the UAT and the testing phase. And thank you. I'm open to questions.
This is lovely, brother. Thank you so much. If anybody has any questions, don't want to unmute or maybe add it in the chat, they're most welcome to ask further about any of the things from the previous session or today's session. I guess not. So whether if anybody has any questions after the session as well, you can contact him on LinkedIn, on the WhatsApp community. You can reach out to me, Ramsha, anybody, any of the group leaders in our Pakistan community. Thank you so much, brother. It was lovely having you. Great series, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining. So hope to see you guys soon in the next one.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so much, brother. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.